What's up, everybody? Welcome to House Divided. Orange Bloods Live on a Friday. Jeff Ketchum, Chad Hastings. Chad's the one doing the pointing. If you didn't know, we do have our names technically right by us. But yeah, we're here. Going to be talking Texas football. Like, comment, subscribe to the page. We do love you when you do all of those things. And jump into the Specs chat. Chat it up. Send us some super chats. Today's a good day. We're going to bounce around and probably have kind of a free-flowing discussion about Texas football and the kind of the behind-the-scenes general manager infrastructure standpoint, real exciting stuff that I think has been at the forefront of a lot of conversation this week, Chad. I've told people on the old-fashioned earlier today, like, you know what? The War Room is free this week. So if you're watching the show and you're like, but you know what? Just stop what you're doing right now. Hit the pause button or mute me or whatever. Go to Orange Bloods, read the War Room, because I really think it will set today's conversation. It'll give you so much background information with regards to what specifically is everything that's been reported on this behind the scenes. And and then I just think it'll make this conversation sound better. So if you haven't been to Orange Bloods today, I'm telling you, before you get too deep into this, just go read it. Like, it will, I think, really provide the context that would be really valuable in this discussion. And Chad, I have to admit, as we begin today's show, one of the things that's happened this week is, I think, my thoughts on a lot of this discussion have evolved and continue to evolve. And because of that, I think it makes the discussion really interesting, right? Because I don't think anything that we've talked about this week is as easy and as simple to navigate through with a hard, firm, it's like this, and this is the only way it can be. And if it's not like this, it's wrong. There's so much more nuance in this conversation than that. And that's why I kind of enjoy the conversation. I like it to be my brain be challenged. I love the idea that what we're talking about isn't easy. And it's the evolving that's getting me closer to what I think the actual answers are. And I can't wait to write my 10 thoughts from the weekend, because part of you do an on-war show earlier and now doing this show today in real time, the hamster is moving around on this discussion. I think there have been people who've made really good points. I think Anwar made some really good points today that I would say, does it change my mind on everything? Well, no, because nothing's doing that. But did he make a couple of really good points that, you know what? They can't be forgotten. They have to be discussed. They are central to, I think, the important narrative. And who knows, maybe by the time you and I are done today, we'll be able to add a few more of those to the list of things that, you know what, whenever we're having this discussion, always remember this. And that list keeps growing.
To me, and like Ketch said, go check out the War Room. Also, when you're ready to get signed up for orangebloods.com, that QR code in the lower left is the easiest way for you to do that. Just hit the QR code. You're good. You're in. But the easiest thing I could tell a Texas fan today, Ketch, if they didn't check out the War Room, is obviously to check that out. But if I was a fan coming out of it, there was some really good information in terms of, exactly who Brandon Harris is and maybe some of the things that he does. I do find it interesting that this discussion was sort of out in the world. And when Anwar, checked in with folks at Texas, it was a little bit of maybe not bristling. Maybe that's not the proper response, but there was this kind of notion about, well, wait a second. You mean the discussion is that OU has made a move that's just light years ahead of what we're doing? That's not the case. And so I think there's just some good stuff, like you said, in there to kind of evolve the conversation on where Texas stands right now in terms of this GM discussion.
Yeah. It really is as simple as that. And I think I think the reaction by Anwar's sourcing, and look, I reached out to some of my sourcing in the last, I don't know, 12, 14 hours, kind of after the War Room got published. And I was like, hey, thoughts? I had people get back to me, and it was funny. The one of my biggest sources, a guy that like I just find to be really trustworthy. He's always been good to me, and he's not always there when I need him, but like shit hits the fan. Like he's usually pointing me in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
We start talking about Brandon Harris, and he was like, hey man, but he hadn't read it yet. And he was like, well, if the War Room is pumping up Brandon Harris, he's like, I don't know what they're pumping Brandon Harris up for, right? He hadn't read it. But it was like, Brandon Harris is invaluable. He is working 18 hours a day and a daily grinder. And so whatever is positive, like he's earned that shit. That was action. It's like, I haven't read it yet, but if there's some positive stuff being written about Brandon Harris, then cool. Like that's a guy that probably is overdue for some positive like attaboys, and I think that it was, and then he, then my sources were like telling me their reactions to various things inside the report. You really find out that guy's beloved behind the scenes. You find out that he does a lot of things. And I think what's really interesting for me is that I will go into the weekend kind of thinking the same thing about Brandon Harris that I think about Steve Sarkeesian. And I think this is the most important point that I would make with regards to this entire conversation. I think you have to make sure you're not asking these guys to do too much. We're at a point where it feels like Brandon Harris is being asked to do so much that it's not a question of, is he qualified for the role that he has? And is he a rock star? Because that's how we've described him all week long on this show. At least I have. And the issue is, how many rock stars do you need?
Right. Do you need an assistant rock star? Do you need a VP rock star?
Because I think this thing's turned into, do you need Jim Nagy or do you need Brandon Harris? And I don't think these two guys are remotely the same thing. The answer is yes. Which one do you want? Yes. I think every program in the country better have a Brandon Harris or multiple Brandon Harrises in the program. And everybody probably needs to have their version of Jim Nagy. Like, who's running your college and high school scouting department? Then you want it to be somebody who's as good as possible, and that their staff that they bring with them as good as possible. On a 1 to 10 scale, do you have a 10? Do you have an 8? Is your guy a 6? Do you have 8s and 9s all over your program, but a couple of areas where you got a couple of 5s? I'm of the opinion that like you need 10s as many as you can get. And it's my general philosophy with recruiting, right? I'm about super blue chips. I'm not about what positions they play, what their names are, where they come from. Give me all the super blue chips. I want to stack them up. I want to stack them up every year. And then at the end, I want to have more than anybody else. That's how Ohio State won the national championship this year. One of the realities of Oklahoma football that Oklahoma, I think, is learning, and it's so crazy to say this. I know that if an Oklahoma fan is watching this video right now, they deservedly get to lose their shit at what I'm about to say. I get it. I approve it. Lose it. Oklahoma is not what Texas is as a football program in 2025 in the SEC. They're not. They are not Texas and Georgia right now. From a recruiting standpoint and from a what is possible in the portal standpoint, what Texas can go get Adonai Mitchell and Isaiah Bond from a Georgia and Alabama, and there's nothing that Georgia and Alabama can do to stop it. They tried. They wanted to, but Texas was like, no, we're going to take your cornbread. And Georgia takes cornbread, and Alabama takes cornbread, and Oklahoma's not taking a lot of cornbread right now. That's not who they are. And the Big 12, for 2 decades, it would have been preposterous to suggest that Texas was on Oklahoma's level as a program. In a very short amount of time, Texas has left Oklahoma in the dust from a talent acquisition standpoint in both of the major areas in which talent is acquired. On top of that, they've got more money, and it matters that Oklahoma is kind of having to, like, and really everybody in the world of NIL is begging for money on some level, but like Oklahoma isn't working with the type of luxuries that Ohio State and Texas and Georgia are. What they need in a GM, probably somebody that can help them try to cut into the talent gap that they otherwise can't cut into, because they can't just go out and get every 5-star they want. They can get an occasional 5-star. They can get an occasional super blue chip, but they're not an elite talent acquiring program. So they've got to figure out a way to cut into the advantages that other people have. Their need for somebody like Jim Nagy to run a scouting department to help them find diamonds in the rough is more important at Oklahoma right now than it is at Texas and Georgia. And I think the conversation of when you think about, so I'm of the opinion that Texas shouldn't stop trying to find diamonds in the rough. But because I like taking flyers on guys. I like that they went after Javion Cole at San Jose State a year ago to try to address the cornerback position. And what a luxury that Jahdae Barron just proved to be a total badass in a way that he was not at the star position. He became the Thorpe Award winner, and then you had Malik Muhammad, and then you got Kobe Black. And then what ends up happening is Javion Cole wasn't good enough to play for Texas. But that's because Texas has a crap load of talent. Oklahoma may be the type of program right now that is like, well, could Javion Cole play for us? Well, do we have a bunch of 5-stars? We don't, actually. Then maybe what their needs are, just in general, are different than what Texas's needs are. It's going to remain that way for a long time. That this may be the new world order, is that Oklahoma is a different type of program than Texas. And I think that that's the conversation that probably needs to be taking place right now. The conversation is, holy crap, as we break this stuff down, Oklahoma and Texas are not the same things. And it's I will continue to look at what Oklahoma did with the hire of Jim Nagy, excuse me. I think it was a great hire. I don't know if Texas has anybody in their scouting department. In fact, I'll just confidently say they don't. They don't have anybody as good as Jim Nagy in the capacity of the role that Jim Nagy will have at Oklahoma. But Texas doesn't need Jim Nagy as bad as Oklahoma needs Jim Nagy, because Jim Nagy could come to Texas and spend the entire year looking for diamonds in the rough and players under rocks. And, hey, if we can't get Isaiah Bond and we can't get Adonai Mitchell and we can't get, Trey Moore and all of these guys that are at the top of the food chain in the portal, we now have to go and find something below that. Those guys might not be able to play at Texas. And when they do, it might not be a good thing, because Texas is trying to be better than Ohio State. Texas is trying to be better. By the way, it's a UPS guy. So
delivery's here. Dog alarm. The Ketchum dog alarm will not
hold that thought. Pay a bill while the UPS guy is driving my dogs nuts.
Fair enough. By the way, if you guys are looking for a great, cheap Friday night option tonight, how about a free concert? Hay City Store is celebrating their 10th anniversary with 10 free concerts, and it all starts tonight. We told you a little bit about Aname Rose earlier in the week, up-and-comer, a young rising star, like 22, 23 years old, and a voice from heaven. If you want to go check her out tonight, she and her band are out there. Again, all shows are free. Mickey and the Motor Cars, Dale Watson coming this weekend, and you can see all the other names there. Go to HeyCityStoreTX.com, and if you have some memories, some old pictures of when you were hanging out at Hay City Store at some point, they want to see them. 10 years at HeyCityStoreTX.com. And of course, you get the incredible food and drink and experience that Hay City Store is known for. But the free concert series begins tonight with Aname Rose. Hopefully everybody will have a great time out there with that one. Gonna be good stuff. All right, Catch. I think the delivery dogs have now calmed down.
I hope so.
Yeah.
There's no barking, and I did kind of like yell at my wife, like, can you do something with these dogs? And, you know, like, I don't know if you saw me yell, like I muted myself, and then I did like this. Do something about those dogs. And then, so I'm back. And so far, it looks like we're going to be okay. So we'll continue now. I just think the point that, again, I think every program needs a Brandon Harris and a Jim Nagy. And then talented people working for them, right? But two things with Jim Nagy that stand out to me. One, the need at Oklahoma. The need at Oklahoma versus his need at Texas for what his role will be is just, they're different. And I hope I've explained how they're different. The other thing is that I don't know that if Jim Nagy comes to Texas, I don't know that that means that he automatically has Sark's voice or ear. I don't know that he's in the inner circle. As many things that Brandon Harris does from a personnel decision standpoint, one of the things that one of my sources pointed out to me was like, it's Sark's show, period. And oftentimes Sark makes decisions fast. Like he's ultimately the shot caller from a personnel standpoint. When they decide they want a guy, nobody's making that decision other than Steve Sarkeesian. And so, like, he may simply not feel like he needs a Jim Nagy because he may think, I am this program's Jim Nagy. Now, where this circles back around, full circle to the conversation that we started on Tuesday when we had this. Sark's the best guy Texas can get, probably from a personnel standpoint. Problem is, Sark does a lot of stuff. And in December, when they were in the playoffs in a national quarterfinal and a national semifinal and trying to get to a national championship game, he's their offensive play caller who's drawing up game plans for the single biggest games of the season. They all happen in December until you get to January, and then those are even bigger than the ones in December. While he's doing that, National Signing Day and the end of the recruiting cycle, which we know doesn't really happen in February anymore. Texas didn't sign anybody in February. Everything got done in December. That happens at the exact same time that the portal opens up and at the exact same time that Texas was playing for an SEC championship, getting into the playoffs, playing in 3 playoff games, and Sark wasn't at his best from an offensive play calling standpoint. In fact, this year, offensively, in the 5 biggest games that Texas played in, they didn't break 20 points offensively in any of those games. Not against Ohio State, not twice against Georgia, not against Arizona State, not against A&M. If you wanted to say Clemson, okay, well then 1 out of the 6 biggest games of the season did they offensively break 20 points. So they need Sark's got to be, that's his baby. That's his, if he's Al Green, the offense is his let's stay together. and yet he wasn't at his apex at the most important time. And I do think people behind the scenes are concerned Sark's doing too much. But you cannot make Sark listen to Jim Nagy. You can't just force Sark, hey, Sark, we know you like to keep a close inner circle, and I know you may not like the guy that we think you should hire, but you should hire him and then let him make personnel decisions so you can focus on this other thing. Sark is not trying to hear that. It's one of the reasons I mentioned earlier in the week on Orange Bloods. There is a part of me that when I wonder how long Sark is going to be in college football, there's a part of me that wonders how much of this is going to, how much of this is he going to be able to do and sustain for year after year after year? And maybe the answer is he won't, that something has to give, whether he's going to stay in college and wear 10 hats, which would never be asked of a head coach in college football or in pro football, or will he go to pro football where he'll eventually go, I don't have to do all the stuff that I have to do in college. It's kind of you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And I really just find myself unsure about like what this looks like in a few years. I really believe at some point Sarkeesian is going to have to like give up some of what he asks of himself, but we're not there yet. And I think that ultimately that's the bottom line. Like Sark is going to have to make, it's not that they need Jim Nagy. He's got to decide that they need it. And it's got to be maybe not because there's a weakness in the program from a scouting standpoint, but it might be that we're just asking too many people to do too many things and that we need them to just focus on what they do best. For instance, Anwar and I were having this conversation about Brandon Harris. He's currently negotiating NIL contracts and doing like a really good job. Like everybody kind of admits that he's a plus in the program, in that department. But is he the best? Like, I can't answer that question. But not everybody can be the best at everything. Like if Oklahoma's going to turn around and say, we think Jim Nagy is the best at scouting and that's why we brought him in, they're also not saying that he's the best capologist, that he's the best at high school recruiting, the best, like, you start naming all the recruiting in general. He's come out and said, man, I'm not doing any recruiting. I'm going to be behind the scenes. I will be telling them who to recruit, but I will not be like in the sales game. That's not what I'm doing. Okay. I actually like that Jim Nagy kind of understands his limitations. I think if you're Texas, you should aspire to be elite in what they do and have so much confidence in them that when they tell you something, it's like E.F. Hutton. It's law. You listen. I don't think it's completely like that right now. And it's not something that's holding Texas back at all. The question is it something that would later on down the road, that eventually, if you keep pushing the limits and asking too few people to do too many jobs, when does it become a problem? And I think that's the concern. I think the concern is Sark can't be, at some point, like some hard calls have to be made. Do you want to be the offensive coordinator and the play caller? Or are you going to make personnel decisions in the portal? Because when it comes to a head in December and January, and you need to be at your absolute best from a play calling standpoint and an actual coach on the field, what if you're giving up? Is 75% enough at that time of the year in that capacity? Or is it so important at that stage of the season if you're going to be a play calling offensive minded head coach or a play calling defensive coach, but like that's your side of the ball, you're calling plays on game day, you're devising the game plan, can you do it at 75% focus? Because you have to take 25% of your focus and put it on other things. And if we're being completely honest, during December, do we really think that 75% of his focus was on game plans and the offense? How could it be?
Yeah.
How could it be? If at night or in the evenings, Chad, you have to do things like talk to kids all night on the phone and do in-home visits, and you know what I mean? If you're doing all of those things, how can you also be at your best as a play caller? Would in the NFL playoffs, would an NFL team ever ask its offensive coordinator to take time during a playoff week to take a look at draft film? Hey, that stuff's coming up in April, and it is the biggest thing that arguably we do all year long. So can you watch quarterback film this week and get back to us? And I think we know that the answer is that would never happen. That
they got people to do that.
But that's what Sark expects of himself. So a big part of this conversation is not either or. It's not Jim Nagy versus Brandon Harris. You need both of those guys. And I think that eventually Texas will get to a point where that happens. We're just not there yet.
All right, if you guys have some thoughts while Ketch was talking and you want to send us a super chat, please do so. We got 2 that are already in, and we will start with H-Dog. $4.99 on a super chat. Ketch, would you say Texas is going all in for a national championship in 2025, or are they missing a few pieces?
Yes. They are going. I've reported this in the war room, and I've probably said it like a dozen times on this show. Texas looked at what Ohio State did last year, and Ohio State wasn't worried about 2025 NIL or 2026 NIL, or their focus was on going forward in 2024. And you know what? You know what Texas' response to that was? Damn, that's pretty good and smart, actually. It worked. So as soon as Ohio State won the national championship, I started to hear in 2025, Texas will follow the 2024 Ohio State model. They're all in. They're all in 2025. Now, the reality of that means when 2026 rolls around, they'll be all in on 2026. Right? Like the goalposts will move eventually. But right now, the focus is on 2025, trying to win a national championship. And are they missing a few pieces? Yeah. Yeah, I think everywhere in the program other than quarterback on the offensive side of the ball, I can talk myself into they need somebody. They could use a running back. How about this? They could use a running back that averages more than 5 yards a carry. They could use another true number one type receiver. I mean, whatever we think of DeAndre Moore and Ryan Wingo as starters, and I think most people think a lot of them. If you could add somebody who has number one wide receiver experience to that group, that's making it better. They could use a tight end. They could use a couple of offensive linemen. This is a program that is all in 2025, but they're not all in done yet. What happens in the spring once the second portal window opens up will be critically important. So, yes.
April 15th, I believe, is that first date of it opening up. The other super chat we got in was from Bates. A lot of Longhorn fans want this to be true, Catch. $1.99. Buy or sell, OU is about to become the next Nebraska. They want it really badly. They want it for Christmas. Can you give it to them?
Well, no, because Nebraska has lost a lot. I think the point that they want to make is accurate, which is OU is going to find it very difficult in the modern age of this sport to compete at the very highest level. I think we saw that and witnessed it in this past season, that you had a Texas football program that was infinitely more ready to compete right away in the SEC than Oklahoma. Oklahoma has to, I mean, that's where they have to go. They've got to find a way to compete in the SEC, but they can't acquire talent like the elite of the elite in the SEC. So how do they compete not with Ole Miss or Tennessee, but yeah, them too. But how do they compete with Georgia, Texas, and Alabama every year? And they can't from a talent acquisition standpoint. The thing is, in the Big 12, you had Texas and Oklahoma, and Texas dicked around for a lot of the last 15, 16 years. Just dicked around. And Oklahoma, because there was nobody else to compete with regards to who has the most talent, they can run second from a recruiting standpoint and be just fine. Like having conference championships they won, one after another, 5 in a row. It never stops. Yet now in the SEC, there's not just Texas, a floundering Texas at that. There's a pile of schools who in the natural pecking order live in a different zip code than Oklahoma does. So they can't do what they did in the Big 12, because what it would require is for the 5 Texases that live in the SEC to all be bad at the same time and underwhelming and underperforming in a way that Oklahoma's cool by comparison. You know what? No, we have no top 5 classes, and we're not the top 10 nationally in super blue chips. But you know what we do have? Bunch of teams around us that aren't holding up their end of the bargain so we can outcoach them. It's not about the Jimmies and the Joes anymore. It's about the X's and the O's. But that is really tough in the SEC, and we saw it last year. It is about the Jimmies and the Joes. And Texas had a bunch of Jimmies and Joes. We saw it at the Combine. And consequently, guess what? They won a ton of games. They played for an SEC championship. They played in a national semifinal. The Oklahoma teams that were winning conference championships while Texas was toiling in its own mediocrity, when they took those Big 12 titles into the playoffs, they got undressed every time. Every time they weren't good enough to overcome the things that they were able to overcome in Big 12 play. So, yeah, man, if we don't get too literal with OU is about to become the next Nebraska, then what we can actually do is just take the about to become out of that sentence.
Yeah. Well, because
Oklahoma is Nebraska. The other thing that Oklahoma doesn't have, they don't have a natural recruiting base. They got a big event coming up this weekend in Oklahoma, a big recruiting event. They got like 2 guys that are visiting this weekend from the state of Texas that Texas will legitimately give a crap about.
Yeah. Well, yeah, to kind of illustrate your point here, I just pulled up the standings. So thinking about after year 1 of SEC play and what they have to crawl over, obviously we all know there's 16 teams. The first group of 4 includes Texas, Georgia, and Bama. The next group of 4 involves LSU and A&M.
Yeah.
Oklahoma is in the bottom group of 4, and Missouri and Arkansas are above them in that third group of 4. So to your point about what wasn't there in the Big 12, my argument for why Oklahoma and maybe Texas back then, but obviously Texas has proven that they can get up on top of it. But my argument always for staying in the Big 12 and not going to the SEC was just easier path, and there aren't as many things casting shadows on you. But now OU, I mean, we knew it'd be a little different. I didn't think it would look like this, though, Catch. I didn't think we'd look at the standings at the end of the year and A&M, LSU, Missouri, Arkansas, and Tennessee, they're all casting a shadow on OU. They're all better than OU. Like, they're the best of the bottom 4.
And nothing about what's happening, then, and this is where, so let's talk about Jim Nagy again real quick, okay?
Okay.
When the season ended, Oklahoma had a bunch of guys enter the portal, and they went after a huge portal class. but nobody's like hyping up that Oklahoma recruiting class. Nobody, you know what I mean? Like they got the quarterback ultimately that they want, and they hope can at least solve that position. But like they're going places to get players. Texas and Georgia, when they go into the portal, oftentimes go shopping at Neiman Marcus. Oklahoma's not getting a lot of Neiman Marcus shopping done. That's not who they are. And you know what? My wife, God love her, you know what she loves to do? She loves to go to like thrift shops or find a good bargain. Or it's like, Heather, why, if there's a good Groupon deal, it's like, I found something on Groupon. And I always am like thinking to myself, did we really need to spend $30 on 4 tickets to like a play out in South Houston because the tickets were $4 off each? And you were like, hey man, we're saving $16.
Your wife was like, man, I hate this band, but these tickets were only $8. This is fantastic.
Consequently, she wants to go see Kendrick Lamar in Houston. And she's like, the tickets I want cost $400. So guess what? Those tickets have not been ordered and purchased yet.
There you go.
I don't know if they will be.
There you go. The Kendrick.
But you know what my wife, truth be told, my wife also loves Neiman Marcus. And I'll never forget, I went to Neiman Marcus. I don't even remember when it was. But for Christmas one year, I went to Neiman Marcus in the Domain.
Damn, Chris Bennett. Oh,
no, he's not. But he's not wrong. And if you have to shop at the Dollar Tree, you better have like that. You're like, we need to get us a Jim Nagy because we sure are we're slumming it in talent acquisition. We're literally looking under rocks.
Real quick, Catch, answer this one. Catch, where would you say A&M shops? They've got the massive NIL.
They shop at fucking Neiman Marcus. Now, they don't always get what they want, but like A&M is capable of landing a #1 overall recruiting class. At its best, they have the artillery and firepower as a program that right guy, right year, right situation, they can sign one of the great recruiting classes of all time. Now, look, you got to be able to develop it. You got to be able to keep it together. You got to be able to pay it. You got to be able to keep them happy. You got to be able to coach football. Like, there are a lot of things you got to do once you do that. But you can't do all of the other stuff until you do that first. My wife, let me finish this story. I went to Neiman Marcus, and my wife loves bathrobes, Chad.
Okay.
She's a bathrobe woman.
Likes a bathrobe.
So, she has like 30 bathrobes.
Wow. Okay. Fair enough.
Like she loves them. She's got like ugly, nasty married woman bathrobes.
Now, are they like sweaters back in the day, like in the 80s? You want to purposely get ugly ones, or do we need them to be pretty? Like, what does she care
likes
about?
All kinds.
All
Matter
kinds.
of fact, sometimes she wears. Remember when I was a member of El Rey? That club closed. I don't know, 13, 14 years ago.
Did you go buy them out of robes?
No, I had my own robe,
okay.
But she wears my robe. She loves robes.
Okay.
So if it's cold, she wears the El Rey robe. Well, I went and bought her this incredibly sexy, silky, it was like a $300 robe. I was like, you know what? If you love robes, let me get you the dopest robe I can find. She loves it. She still has it. She wore it Saturday night.
There you go.
We had some coupling time together.
Okay, we don't need to know all the details.
She wore the Saks robe. The Neiman.
She wore the
Saks or Neiman. It was Neiman Marcus because it was at the Domain.
She wore the high price robe.
But when she opened the present that day, on Christmas Day, all she could talk about was returning the robe and like spreading that money out over more stuff. Right. I can go get a refund. I can go to Ross and get a robe. And then I can take the other $295 of that $300 and like
then she called
with it.
Then she called Jim Nagy and they talked about maybe going shopping at the dollar store.
No, then she put the robe on and wore it like one time.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, you know what? These super blue chip robes are kind of nice.
this high 4 and 5-star robe stuff is pretty good.
You know what's not overrated? 5-star robes.
Your wife is like, Fasusi fabric. That's nice.
Okay. If she were nearby, she would hear this conversation, and you know what would happen.
Oh yeah.
She'd probably come in, like hold the robe up and go, this is, but you know what? The robe, after all these years, it's got a little bitty hole in it. But you got over a decade of this robe for $300.
Yeah, it's a good run.
She's got a good run with it. But I know this, my wife thinks instinctively she needs to shop at Ross.
Mm-hmm.
But if she absolutely could, she would shop at Neiman Marcus.
Okay.
And that's who you are. That's what college football is all about.
So now bring it back to Jim Nagy in Oklahoma. Where's Oklahoma in that discussion?
They shop at Ross, and they have got to find good deals. And on top of shopping at Ross, the state of Oklahoma doesn't, from a natural resource standpoint, doesn't supply Oklahoma with what it needs to compete on a national level. They have to come into Texas. They have to come in to Florida. They have to go into California. So and this is why when you say, is Oklahoma like Nebraska? Nebraska deals with the same thing. They have to go into other states and depend on those natural resources to supply their program. Texas, Georgia, the schools in Florida, the schools, a USC in California, those schools have LSU. They have, from a natural resource standpoint, and Oklahoma gets, I suppose, to count North Dallas as, the Metroplex is kind of a natural resource for them. So they're not completely depleted, but we know that they don't, they get an occasional Michael Fasusi, but they don't every year get the absolute best player out of the Metroplex, let alone 5 or 6. And it's like, that's our natural resource. They also aren't overflowing in money, but I would say that's a kind of a problem with everybody. I had somebody tell me last night, if the NCAA settlement doesn't go through, every major college football program in the country is effed. Because they're all now depending on whatever that number is, between 15 and 20 million that is going straight to football across the country. Without that, they got to find that 15 million somewhere. Them bills got to be paid. Like the commitments to pay these players have been made in this offseason by schools all over the country. They're depending now on being able to use that money. Nobody is so flush with cash that they're able to pay their NIL bills without the help of the athletic department now taking on this big responsibility.
Yeah, you better crank up your collective if that happens. All right, Catch, I like this chat here. Again, if you want to send a super chat, it'll go right to the top, but I really like Chris's comment here. Oklahoma's success in the Big 12 never translated to national championships because they couldn't compete with the Alabamas on the big stage. Now they are on that stage 6 times a year in the SEC. Chris, a good point. Obviously, they did win a national title out of the Big 12, but they didn't face an SEC team in the title game there. So to your point, but yeah, I mean, that's kind of what's going on. All right. If you guys want to throw a super chat in, continuing to talk about this GM discussion, Texas, OU, Nagy, and Brandon Harris and all that. Catch, I had a couple questions for you. Before we do that, let's give Specs their love. Almost 700 folks in that Specs chat. Weekend's coming. You might need to get stocked up. They've got shelves full of everything.
At Specs, it doesn't cost a lot to turn a good time into a great time, especially if you like saving money. From connoisseur collectors to aficionados of ale, you'll find bubbly bliss at any budget with a Texas-sized selection of world-class wines, rare spirits, craft beers, and more. So when you're getting ready for a good time, Specs is ready to make it great. Because at Specs, the fun starts here.
Shop Specs, low priced, amazing. Here's to you.
I gotta try that sometime, Catch, with my mom. Every time my dad and I drink beer, my mom kind of has this sort of eye roll and, oh Lord, here we go. I gotta explain to her, we're not drinking beer, Mom. We're connoisseurs of ale. Do you not understand? We're connoisseurs over here. Did you just get like some food delivered in that 30 seconds? That was well done.
I had 4 iced teas from Smoky Moe's delivered.
4?
Well, because I had to spend $12 on Grubhub or they hit me with all the service fees.
Gotcha.
So I will not drink all of this iced tea. But if I hadn't ordered 4, it would have cost me more to order 2.
I got you. Okay. You played the math. That is good. By the way, Michael might have my favorite chat of the day, Catch, on the discussion we've been having. OU shoplifted Fasusi. Well done. That's just well played. Well played.
Well, hey,
carrying out the analogy.
On a serious note, look at what they had to do to get Fasusi.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, that came with a mountain of stress because they had the money, but they don't have unlimited resources where it was like, okay, God, they're going to be so mad when I say this, but Texas Tech can afford a 5-star, right? They can. We've seen them do it.
Right.
What is really interesting, I think, is that they're almost helpless, though, because when Texas came in and started swinging around money, if it had become about money, Michael Fasusi would have picked Texas. Michael Fasusi picked Oklahoma because he legitimately liked Oklahoma more than Texas, and had his best friend was going to be a preferred walk-on, is going to be a preferred walk-on at Oklahoma. And like, they were able to win an emotional battle there that in 2025, you cannot count on that consistently.
Yeah. I was going to ask you to clarify that. So in the case of Fasusi, they obviously, weren't able to go up to, or I should say, didn't have to go up to the level Texas was willing to go to. But is it safe to say Oklahoma got pulled out of their price range?
No, but I think they got pulled into paying more than they wanted to.
Okay.
They end up, and look, to Fasusi's credit, he could have leveraged that into Michael Fasusi could have got $2 million if he wanted it. Seriously, a year. Had he wanted to hold Oklahoma's feet to the fire, he could have visited Texas late. And he could have said what Brandon Baker said. Hey, you know what? It ain't show friends, it's show business. I'm going to go to the school that pays me the most amount of money.
Yep.
I think Texas would have heard that. How did they get Justice Terry? Now, look, Justice Terry will tell you he picked Texas because of the coaching, and Kenny Baker did a really good job. And like, we go on and on and on and on. But they ponied up. If you ask Georgia people, they're like, Texas and their damn NIL. Because Texas was like, you know what we got to do? We got to get Justice Terry. Yeah. Now, Georgia had a couple of other 5-star defensive tackles, and it was like, Jesus, what Texas is doing with Justice Terry, this is going to screw up everything for us. And like, so you have to make these really tough decisions sometimes. I think the reality of the Oklahoma football program is that they can't afford 7 Michael Fasusis a year. And I think Texas would tell you they'll never turn down a Michael Fasusi type talent if it's only a matter of money.
Yeah. Catch, let me ask you something back to the kind of sort of the beginning of the conversation, but to your point about Texas possibly needing a Brandon Harris and a Jim Nagy. Do you think Sark would agree that those are two different things? Or,
Yeah. No, well, yes, I think.
or would Sark say to us, or would Sark say to you, Catch, I've got that guy. I've got my guy. I've got my GM. Brandon Harris does a badass job. He does all the things I need him to do. I don't need anybody else. There are people there are people that work for him. There are people that work underneath him. He busts his ass. We get done everything we need to get done.
Is that the best you can do? Is that the goal? I think for me is always, is this the best we can do? Can we do better in the draft? If you got an A in the draft internally, if you were like grade, give yourself, what kept you from getting an A plus? How do we get A pluses? I think Brandon Harris has a bunch of skill sets that are A plus skill sets. They make him insanely valuable. They make him a rock star on this staff. But if he's a 7 out of 10 and Jim Nagy, let's just for the sake of argument, is a 9 when it comes to like experience and chops as a talent evaluator and resources and talent, like, you know what I mean? Like the guy that is responsible for finding the talent that comes to the Senior Bowl, presumably in that area is better than somebody who doesn't quite go that hard. Well, is being able to do a job enough? Is even doing a job well or really well enough? What is the bar? This is me.
Right.
I am about elite people everywhere doing their jobs. What I don't want is spreading my elite talent into areas that make them a little bit less elite in the areas where they're truly elite than they need to be. For instance, don't you think, Chad, that every school does need some sort of capologist? That you got to find somebody who, not only can be an expert at managing cash flow and where money is going and what amount of money are you putting into different positions and how are you spreading that money out by year and like,
right. And maybe how to generate it. Yeah.
Not even, that's its own thing.
Yeah. That's maybe, okay.
The generate guy's a completely different guy.
Okay.
If you're asking your capologist to be your generation guy, you're probably robbing Peter to pay Paul.
So for like Texas, Brandon Harris does one of those things, but not both of those things.
No, he does like 80 things. And he can't be a 10 at all 80 things. So the question isn't whether or not Brandon Harris can do every task. Can you get somebody to make his life a little easier? So if we were to take, Chad, if on your report card, you had an A plus in English, a B in science, a D in math, and like D's everywhere else. And I was to say, we need what? Well, first of all, what's your skill? What do you, based on that report card, what do you do?
Sounds like I do the A and B stuff pretty well.
No, you see, and you do the A stuff really well. You don't do the B stuff really well. You do a B job.
Oh.
And it's like, hey, so lean into to like the English, right? You're A plus. You're a great writer. That's who you are. And that's what you need to be. You know what you don't need to be? All that, you don't need to be in math and science, right? You're getting D's in those classes. But just because you can do it, if you could find somebody to do the math for you, because you're only a D there, you upgrade. It's like Rodney Dangerfield at Back to School. Why would I write the goddamn paper on Kurt Vonnegut if I could hire Kurt Vonnegut to show up at my dorm room and write a paper on himself?
Right. I guess again, that's back to the question of if we we assume there are people that are already helping Brandon Harris out. Would Sark tell us that they are feeling this kind of pressure you're describing?
They're not feeling pressure.
Or would he say things are getting covered? Here's my other quick question to you.
You would say things are getting covered, and I would say, Sark, is that the bar? What's the bar? What is the bar for every single person inside the Texas Athletic Department? Every day they show up to work. What's the bar?
Yeah.
And if your director of recruiting is operating at 10s every day, is a person in another department who's leading that department constantly putting in 8s, is that good enough? 8, pretty good. Pretty good. Nothing wrong with an 8 in general. Is it good enough? What's the bar? And if Sark were to say, you know what? We got me. Hey, it's me. And I'm good with our staff the way it is. Are they all 10s? Are they all the best at what they do in the country? Perfect 10s? Nah, but I don't need that. Okay, well, Sark doesn't need that, I guess.
Well, that gets to my next question. Your description about Nagy and the state of Oklahoma football right now was really interesting. And you made the case that Oklahoma needs a guy like that right now in a different way than Texas would, or maybe more than Texas does.
I think Oklahoma has an elite college scouting director. And I don't care what you call him. I don't care if you call him, who's the most important person in the Dallas Cowboys franchise behind the scenes from a front office standpoint? Every Cowboy fan knows the answer to this.
Who, Clay?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's not the general manager.
No,
he didn't even have Stephen Jones's titles.
No, that'd be silly. Why would you do that?
It doesn't matter, though. Will McClay's realized I ain't ever going to be the GM in Dallas. Right. But it doesn't matter what they call me because they let me make decisions and lead my team. And when the Cowboys have a great draft, the general manager doesn't get credit. Whatever fucking title he has, we know. In fact, about the only thing Cowboy fans can agree on with a certain amount of happiness, they're pretty confident in their scouting department for the draft. And the guys that make the decisions in the draft, in general, Cowboy fans are pretty content with the guy that leads the charge there. And I think that's the way I look at this. You need everybody in your football department. The goal should be every day you walk in, you're a perfect 10. That's the demand, not 7s and 8s.
Yeah.
I'm not calling anybody 7s and 8s at Texas. That's for Steve Sarkeesian to figure out himself ultimately.
Right.
Do I think I'm reaching optimal levels?
Right.
The answer is no. And there are ways to get closer to optimal levels. I am a firm believer, then do it. Yeah, that by any means necessary. If you can make yourself better, I think in general, my overall philosophy is in execution. I think people find it pretty hardcore because, you thought that B in science was pretty good. And I thought that B in science made me think, well, you know who I don't want running our science? Chad. Because a B isn't good enough to lead the department. It needs to be. And an A is not good enough. Because if you've got an A, how do we get A+? And if the A can turn into an A+, then develop that person and get them there. But I am forever after A+. And if that's my sin in this conversation, is that I sound unrealistic, I'm okay with that, actually. I'm okay that at Texas, the school that I cover, that my bar for them is excellence across the board. If I was at Baylor, I would demand the exact same thing, but I would know that my ability to shop for that, I've got to be a little more creative with how I go about trying to get my 10s. I can't just go buy it every time. That's where Oklahoma is. The Nagy hire was such a good one for them. In part, they don't have elite at head coach. Like, can we say the quiet part out loud? It almost doesn't matter, right? As long as Brent Venables is the head coach at Oklahoma, they're fucked. He's not elite. I don't even know if he's good. He's okay. And again, and this is what, and you know what? Checkmate, Chad. Here we go. You know why Steve Sarkeesian is at Texas right now instead of Tom Herman? Ultimately, forget about the eyes of Texas. Do you know why officially, the official position, why Steve Sarkeesian is at Texas and not Tom Herman right now?
Because he can get them closer to a national title than Tom Herman could?
They thought he was a slight upgrade. Simple as that. Simple as that. They looked at Tom Herman and they were like, we think he's very good. And look, the year he got fired, they finished 16th in the country, 19th in the country. I can't remember. It was the second highest rated end of the season ranking, which is sad, since 2010. The year Herman loses his job, they win their bowl game. They go 7-3 in the year in the pandemic. They won 2 road games against top 15 teams, I think. Like, they manhandled Kansas State. They beat Oklahoma State, and I think Oklahoma State was 6th at the time. They win the bowl game. They end up ranked in the top 20, and they fired his ass. And one of the reasons why they hired Steve Sarkeesian was they were convinced he's closer to elite and getting us to elite than Tom Herman is. And the big reason why is they thought he would be an upgrade as a recruiter, and they thought he would be an upgrade as a play calling head coach. That they'd seen Tom Herman do it, and Tom Herman had confessed out loud, I don't like doing this. I don't think I'm as good at everything else as I need to be it's ironic, these conversations when Tom Herman was here, he said that out loud. I don't think I should be the play calling OC. Why? I'm spreading myself too thin. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that on game days I can be the game manager and the kind of game overseer that I need to be. He said that first week on the job, first week of the 2017 season. He said that, and I nearly fell out of my chair.
I know, me too. I'll never forget that.
It was not what they thought they were getting in Tom Herman.
Yeah, that was well, wait a minute. Why are you here? What? Huh? What?
Why are you? Do you realize that Lincoln Riley is your competition?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
He's not once ever showed up at a press conference and said, yeah, I just don't know that I need to be calling plays. Yeah. And to say that when the competition was Lincoln Riley was, again, I nearly fell out of my chair. But it's ironic that we can recall that conversation because it does sink in with the conversations that we're having now. It is, what's asking too much of talented people? And I think you can almost just focus on Sark. Could Sark be the best play caller at the most important time of the season when he's juggling, making personnel decisions in the portal? He's finishing off recruiting, all of the things that he's doing. And he would say, I'm not giving up the play calling. Okay, well, then what are you giving up?
Yeah, that's a fair question.
And you're going to have to trust, like really trust. Here's what can't happen. You can't hire Jim Nagy and go, you know what? I got to take some stuff off my plate. But then what you can't do is when it's time to make decisions, change your mind and go, I'm not going to lean on the people that I've entrusted to make these decisions because the only person I trust is really myself. So at the last second, when everybody's telling me that I should do this, I'm going to trust myself and do something else. And that'll get you in trouble just in general. Just in general. If I'm hiring somebody to do a really specific job and then I undermine them because I take it out of their hands at the moment, they've spent all the time to eventually come up with a decision. And then I come in and go, no, I don't like that. We're going to do the opposite. I think that's the thing that right now Steve Sarkeesian probably wouldn't be able to do. I don't know that having a Jim Nagy inside the Texas program would be insanely valuable for Texas, because it's no sure thing that Steve Sarkeesian would value someone in that role. He's got to want it, and that would probably take some time.
Super chat did come in from Mark while we were talking. $5. Sark needs me. Good with numbers, good with taxes. I even sold a TV to a blind man when I did electronic sales in college. That's a good thing to put on a resume, Mark. Well done. Yeah, then that's it. Sark might need you. He might need you to get a little bit done. Okay, Catch. Let me ask it this way. We now know that come Monday, Sark's going to have a little presser.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, kind of a little intro to spring kind of thing. Spring practice technically begins, I think, March 25th, or maybe that's when just the pro day is or whatever. But he's going to do kind of an intro spring type of deal Monday morning. If someone can come up with a well-crafted question about Brandon Harris, but specifically ask him about Oklahoma adding Nagy, and say some version of, do you need one of those? Do you think Sark's answer will be some form of, no, we don't, or some form of, we've got that guy, and he argues that it's Brandon Harris?
I think he'll say we have what we need, but Brandon Harris doesn't do all of that. And they do have director of high school recruiting. You know what I mean? They do have people
right
in jobs that do some of this.
But he might argue he doesn't need the Nagy step. He doesn't need that specific person at Texas.
I think he would probably argue that he doesn't. And I just wonder, eventually Ohio State or Georgia or somebody of that ilk is going to make that move, and it's going to work, and everybody's going to copy it. Yeah. And I can't remember who made the point on Orange Bloods yesterday, which it was, might have even been a poster, but somebody mentioned yesterday that, like, you know what? You've seen Moneyball, right? Like, all these years later, analytics is just the way.
Right.
When I started watching baseball as a kid, I did not know what I knew what on-base percentage was, but like when I would look at stats on the back of my baseball cards, I didn't pay attention to slugging. I didn't pay attention. I was like, how many home runs and RBIs and what was your batting average?
Yep. Slash. Give me the slash.
Give me that. And when Moneyball comes around, Moneyball's so good. The best parts of Moneyball are the Art Howe parts of Moneyball. It is the scouts, the interactions with, you're going to be wrong. This isn't the way it's done. Billy, I've been doing this my entire life. What are you going to do? Look at a spreadsheet of numbers or trust my instincts? My baseball instincts and my eyeballs and my confirmation bias, because I've seen this guy in person. And Billy Beane was like, no, we're going to lean on the numbers, actually. That from now on, that's who we are. We're leaning into the numbers. And man, when it first happened, not everybody was immediately willing to lean into the numbers. In fact, there ended up still being teams that won the World Series and eliminated teams like the Oakland A's who were using the math. They probably felt like, you know what? This is proof our way is better. But over time, the most efficient, best way of working is going to rise to the top. And let Bill Belichick have success at North Carolina with Michael Lombardi. Let them try a different approach and have success with it and see how people react. The reality is, though, Texas probably will never do it quite the same way North Carolina does it. Bill Belichick and Michael Lombardi at North Carolina have to figure out a way that's different than Georgia, Ohio State, and Texas. They can't. They just can't. So we're in the middle of an evolution. And I just think the answer to these questions are, it's just going to take time. What do I expect Steve Sarkeesian to say? I expect him to say he's incredibly confident and that they have everything that they need, and that and that they're content with where they are, and they think that they're going to compete for it. And he's going to mention we played in back-to-back national semifinals. Nobody else in the country's done that. Like, we're good.
Yeah.
And I think in 4 years he's going to make hires. You know what? 4 years ago he didn't have a general manager. That's new.
Yeah, that's new all across college football. That's not. I mean, that's in the last 10 years.
Matt Brown, whatever they called, there was no general manager when Matt Brown won a national championship.
No, yeah. I'd be interested to see, like, if you just start looking around the power teams right now, as we speak, how many of them have GMs? How many teams that matter right now?
They all do. The thing is, they all look different.
Yeah.
It looks like the United Nations.
And maybe they're not all called GMs?
No, every program's got a GM.
Okay.
But they don't all fit Jim Nagy's profile or Brandon Harris's profile. Everybody's got their own. I did that this week. I was like, let me go see what Ohio State has. Let me go see what Michigan has. Let me go see what Georgia's doing. I think they all feel like their general managers are the right guy, right? Because they're Georgia, Texas.
Yeah.
They're these programs.
They might all tell us that, right? We don't.
Yes.
We don't need a Jim Nagy.
Different.
Right, because we're doing fine.
Nobody else has Michael Lombardi. Nobody has a Michael Lombardi. Michael Lombardi, consequently, is getting paid $1.5 million at North Carolina. Brandon Harris, if I remember correctly, just got bumped up to $600,000. But Michael Lombardi arrives with a resume, with all due respect to Brandon Harris, is like, it's just different. And what he's going to be asked to do is different. Because you know what Bill Belichick is not going to do at North Carolina? Anything other than coach.
He's not going to go live in living rooms and recruit like crazy, and he's not going to do all that?
He's going to do as little. Let me tell you what, if North Carolina ever makes it to the freaking playoffs, Bill Belichick will not be doing anything the week of a playoff game other than getting ready for that playoff game.
Now that I agree with. No doubt.
And if going into a game, one coach is 1,000%, is Bill Belichick focused on the game, and another coach is 80% focused on the game because he's, quite frankly, he can't do what Bill Belichick does. He has to get out and do his hustle and wear 8 different hats. I don't know how to quantify what that means in that game, but that is not an insignificant advantage.
No, you're right. By the way, that'll be a wild trivia question. If they ever do make the playoff, who's the coach that has to face Belichick in the playoffs on like 10 days notice? Who's that guy? Who's doing that prep to get ready for
and look, we know that when the signing day will be right around the corner. Can you imagine a Bill Belichick press conference when the portal opens up?
Oh, geez.
Coach, can you talk about the portal?
No.
There's a game this week. We play Texas. I'll talk about Texas. Texas has a really good team. Coach, next year, it looks like you guys are going to need like linebackers, and you've had a couple. We're focused on Texas.
Yeah, watching Arch Manning film. He's really good.
I'm focused on the game. Like, he's just like,
he's really good.
And look, Bill Belichick might fail. It's probably more likely than not that it's not going to work out at North Carolina the way you would deem. It's like Jimmy Johnson going to the Dolphins. Like, they weren't terrible, but it wasn't the Super Bowls. So, like, what are we calling it? And it's probably what we're going to see with Belichick. But eventually we're going to see Moneyball work. and we're going to see teams have success with it, and we're going to see teams copy it. And I guess I'm really interested in the answers that Steve Sarkeesian would give to all of these questions. But I do think of Sark, what I think of Kirby Smart or pick any head coach in the country. Is a constant evolution. I didn't have a general manager 4 years ago. That position did not exist in the program. Now I have one. I think it's the best guy I can possibly get. But in 5 years, the sport may look, or they may learn, oh my God, do you know who the most important person is in the entire program? Capologist. Period. And it's like, so do you know who we hired? Like a really smart person from Stanford. Do they have any sports experience? Nope. But you know what? They can math the shit out of things.
Yeah, right. They
you know
dealt with
They make sure that every dollar is allocated where it needs to be, and that, like, you know what I mean? Like, at some point, B's and C's aren't good enough. Not if constantly competing and winning national championships is the goal. It can't be 7s and 8s will get us there. I don't think that's right, actually. In fact, if we went to Jim Harbaugh and said the year you won the national championship, I bet he would tell you that year we were 10s. Probably I wasn't a 10 the year before that. And you know what? I know I wasn't the year before that. I think about this one game with regret all the time. But in 2023, we were 10s. Did you see what we got in the portal? We picked up some offensive line starters. One of them won All-America honors. Like, we did all of these things. 10s that year. But not every year is a 10, and not every year do you have guys that every day can walk in and produce 10s. I can't say that every rider I've ever had on Orange Blood's capable of 10s. The ones that weren't, serviceable, but you do think about the need to upgrade them. You do think they're doing good work, but the way people are responding to their work, to their content, to their reporting, doesn't seem like people are hugely engaged. I got to find somebody that can do that, can create that, or I'll just get rid of that person altogether. Like, eventually you do make decisions and think to yourself, what am I spending my money on if I'm not getting 10s? That's what I think about that all the time as a business owner. And I love my staff. Look, Anwar Richardson, this week's been a gosh darn 10. He's broken in the last 9 days 3 stories that were reported nationally. He's had team news. He's had a war room last night that outlined brand. Like, he had, I think, one of the best weeks that he's ever had as a reporter. I think he had a 10 week. And I think he's had a 10 month. And Anwar Richardson's capable of 10s. And you know what? He doesn't have a peer in this market that's out there snagging 10s every day. There are good people that work in this network or in this market. But nobody else in this market broke a single national story in the last 9 days. Anwar's broken 3. Anwar's dominated the Archman and the Quinn Ewers reporting. Every time Quinn Ewers got hurt, who was the one that always had the goods first? It was either Pete Thamel or it was Anwar Richardson, and there was no in between. Every year. That's what being elite is. Now, look at the other football writers in this market. Are they good? Yes. Are they really good? Maybe. Yeah, sure. Are they beating Anwar? No. So he's a 10. What's my guy? Well, if you want to have the most subscriptions, if you want to be thought of as the biggest news breaking organization, if you want to have the biggest message board, like, it helps to have the most people. It helps to have elite people. And, you know, Anwar Richardson doesn't work for me, and Jason Suba doesn't work for me for 25 years without being elite of the elite, without constantly bringing 10s to work every day. That's the goal. And if you don't, then you're not Orange Bloods. And if you're not in the world of college football. By the way, we've been the number one subscription site in college athletics, Rivals, 24/7, On3, you name it, since 2005. Now, nobody ever gives us love for that. But do you know how insanely proud I am of that? In 2005, Orange Blood started in 2001. The Ryan Perrilloux recruitment started. We became the number one site in the Rivals network and the number one site across all networks. And that has not changed in 20 years. It's hard to do. Sustaining success is hard. And some years we've done it better than other years. But let's use me as an example right now, Chad. Behind the scenes, you witness this every week in our meetings and in our discussions. We're revamping our recruiting coverage. We're getting ready. I'm going to make an announcement later on today, actually, as part of like a State of the Union Orange Bloods thing. We're creating new types of content focused on new things. We're narrowing our approach and how we're actually covering recruiting because we think there's a better way to do it. We're the number one site. We do a fantastic job. Almost 80% of our subscriber base give us an 8, 9, or 10 on how we cover recruiting. And 80% is not good enough. I want more for us. I don't want anybody else to ever beat us. We hate losing. And this is how you do it. This is how you sustain being number one. And I'm looking across the world of college football, and it's evolving. And you have to constantly strive to stay ahead of your competition. And if you're not moving forward, you will eventually move backwards, like just as a byproduct of no movement. And so Sark I think, was probably close to a perfect 10 last year. He was a 9 point something. Number one recruiting class, SEC championship game finalist, semifinalist on the national stage. But the red zone offense sucked. Well, we can say that, right? Red zone offense was never good. Offense in big games wasn't good. You can't give Sark a 10 for last year. And Sark knows that. So what's Sark doing this offseason? What did he do last offseason? You know he told us? He showed up on the first day of football, the season, had a press conference and said the number one thing that we worked on all offseason, getting better in the red zone. Now, he said that out loud. That's on the record. They didn't get better in the red zone. That does not mean that in 2025, they will not still aspire to be better in the red zone. Well, how does that happen? Sark has to figure it out. He has to get better. He does. And then the players have to execute and perform. And it ain't just Sark, but he's a big part of it. And I promise you, Sark will look at himself and say he needs to improve. And we'll go, damn, Sark, you might be the best in college football right now at what you're doing. You really set a high bar for yourself. I'm just about setting that same bar for every single person in the program. And sometimes it means you have to replace people and hire new people to get the perfect 10 that you're searching for.
All right. We have a super chat here, Catch, that there's some, how do I say this? The autocorrect may have gotten Juan a little bit, but I think we can tell where he's going. $4.99. Catch, did your mind change on Brandon Harris as GM, or does Texas need a bad mofo as GM? I think that's what this is.
What I believe Texas needs is an elite, like a true elite director of its college scouting. And I don't know that high school scouting and college scouting are the same thing. making decisions on 16 and 17-year-olds, and then 4 years later making decisions on 20 and 21-year-old guys, they're not the same skill necessarily. I don't know exactly that Michael Lombardi, because he knows how to find a good pro player, that automatically means he knows how to go look at 16 and 17-year-olds and make the same kind of, like, it's different. Like, you're looking for less, you're looking at less ready-made products, whereas Michael Lombardi's used to evaluating guys who are more further along in their physical development. So where he's really going to be, and Nagy will really be in their sweet spots, is evaluating guys who are already in college. I don't care about the GM title. Brandon Harris as GM is more than perfectly fine. That's not even fair. I'm okay with calling Brandon Harris in his roles with his title. He's great. You want to keep him as long as humanly possible, and you probably won't be able to keep him forever. But I don't view one of his super skills to be the one super skill I think Nagy really has. So I want to bring somebody in who he's pretty good at it, isn't the bar. Because you can go back. I'll tell you what, I'm going to read something from the War Room. Can I, Chad, to answer this question?
Sure. You want me to leave it up there while you do?
Leave it up there while I do. I want to go to Anwar's report, because Anwar makes one of the things that got this. A lot of people were like, you know what? Let me find it. One of the things that's acknowledged in this War Room is that, you know what? He's more than adequate looking at football players and deciding whether or not they can play or not. But, quote, let's talk about watching films and scouting for a moment. Harris was a 4-star quarterback during his senior year in Louisiana. He signed with LSU and played in 25 games over 3 years with the Tigers, according to the LSU bio page. He started 15 times, including all 12 games as a sophomore, and posted a 10-5 mark as a starter, going 0-1 and 20 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Quote, are you telling me a quarterback who started in the SEC and watched film his whole life isn't good at recognizing a player's strengths and weaknesses? Think about a quarterback's ability to analyze and break down film. Trust me, he's one of the best evaluators in the country. Okay, well, none of any of that explained why he's elite. There's an acknowledgement that he's a good evaluator, but he's not a special evaluator, and they don't ask him to do that. Sarkeesian is the person in that program who believes he's the special evaluator, so he's the guy that makes the decisions. They don't ask Brandon Harris to do that. I think they need an elite guy in that capacity, but it's not what I don't care if he's named general manager. Give him Will McClay's title. I don't care. I keep making this joke, and I don't know if it's landing, Chad, because I don't know if people even know what a grand poobah is. But those of us that watch some 70s television and have either seen the Flintstones or a few episodes of Happy Days, like, we know grand poobah is a big deal.
I'm just imagining the hat.
Yes.
That's all I'm seeing in my head. Yeah.
Call him whatever, man. Call him the grand poobah of general manager on, like, just call him whatever. Do you know that Texas has a co-passing game coordinator who's the assistant quarterbacks coach?
It's true.
He's the assistant quarterbacks coach. He's not AJ Millie. He's not the quarterbacks coach. No. But he's a co-passing game coordinator, even though up until they changed the rules this year, he couldn't even be on the field for games. That you were limited in the number of coaches that could be on the sideline. And now they're changing rules and allowing, Kenny Baker was the assistant defensive line coach in Miami. Like Sark didn't care about his title. And I think that's what we keep doing. We keep focusing on Brandon Harris as the general manager. Jim Nagy's been named general manager. In our heads, we think general manager is what we think of in professional sports. So what does it mean to be the general manager in the NBA, the NFL, or Major League Baseball? It's bigger than actually being the coach. But in college sports, that's not the case. The coach is the number one hire on paper. And then like the general manager, I suppose, is the number two. But every general manager has a different set of skills depending on the program they work in. And I just think what you need are as many quality people as possible, and call them whatever you want, whatever it takes to get a guy to say yes to the job. What's that? You want to be the grand poobah of scouting? Cool. I'll let my director of scouting continue to be the director of scouting, and that's a good resume title for him. And you're the grand poobah of scouting. I think we're getting lost in the resumes and pitting these guys against each other instead of saying in professional football, they don't make either ors. And the best organizations, think about, God, I hate to say it, Chad.
Here we go.
Philadelphia Eagles.
You could have picked anybody else.
Well,
they did just win it all.
And their roster acquisitioning, like
they get players.
They won the draft, but they also had somebody figure out how to get Saquon Barkley.
Oh, that free agent thing. Oh,
and the people that do that are different.
Yes.
The people that drafted, who'd they get from Georgia last year? I lose track of all the guys they draft from Georgia.
All of them. Every one of them.
They drafted Georgia.
Damn one of them. The
guy that did that isn't the guy that figured out how to make Saquon Barkley work. And the guy that figured out how to make Saquon Barkley work probably isn't the guy that actually recruited and landed Saquon Barkley. And none of those people were the head coach.
Yep.
And so when I think about college football, I'm thinking of it through the prism of, in the world of pro sports, these people, every person really does one thing. Now, the general manager doesn't, but like everybody else is specialized, and the goal is to be elite in your specialization. College athletics are still in the everybody's got to do as much as they humanly can. And I don't know that that's working smarter. I think that's working harder. And I think the universities at the highest level, the ones between Georgia, Ohio State, and Texas, not in 2025. Because the reality is we spent time talking about Jim Nagy. The amount of impact he's going to have on the 2025 Sooners is pretty minimal. Mm-hmm. That cake is in the oven. To steal a Charlie Strongism. Now, Nagy might be able to put some sprinkles on the cake, right? He's going to show up. He's at his job today. How many players is he going to be able to add through the portal? Like 5? They might add 5 players. 2 or 3 of those might be starters, maybe. So he'll have an impact. But whatever happens with the 2025 Sooners, he's not getting the credit. He's not even responsible for the quarterback that came in, right? That will be viewed as, if Oklahoma turns it around, the acquisition of the quarterback through the portal from Washington State will be viewed as the thing that was ultimately the single biggest addition that was made. And if that doesn't work, nothing else matters.
Somehow I knew if we kept this conversation going today, Catch might have a little bit to say. We're all the way up to 135 at this point. We will hit a little buy or sell after I remind y'all where to go do a little drinking. Here's what you do. You go to Deep Eddy Vodka in the tasting room. You storm right past that sign. You walk right up to a bar and you say, "Let me try pineapple." It's out there. It's the 9th Deep Eddy Vodka flavor, or you can get one of these great cocktails too, the Texas Margarita or the Orange and Peach Mule. They have some already ready to go, or you can just tell them what you like, and they'll make you one from that idea. However you want to do it. Do a tasting. Have some of that great barbecue alongside of it with the Crimson Creek Smokehouse. It's always a good time out at the Deep Eddy Vodka Tasting Room. Do it responsibly. Make sure you tell them you heard about it on Orange Bloods Live. Ketch, you want to go first or second and buy or sell today?
Second.
Go second. All right. Here's the simple version, I think, of that super chat. They were thinking like I was. Buy or sell number one. After reading the War Room, you feel better about Brandon Harris, but you still think there's another hire to make.
Sell. Hires.
Gotcha. Okay.
Hires.
Gotcha. So didn't do the plural there. All right.
Why did they just hire the West Virginia ex-head football coach?
Extra eyeballs on offense.
I mean, so many potential reasons, but that guy's job, I don't even know what his title is because it doesn't matter. You're adding people that you think make your football program better, period.
Yeah.
And you might not even know that you want something until you do.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of good teams, Catch, buy or sell number two. Texas women's hoops will win the SEC tournament, beating LSU and South Carolina to do it.
Sell. They'll lose to South Carolina in the final.
By the way,
in part because I think that won't be Moody Center crowd.
I was going to say, you know where they play this tournament, right?
Yeah. A little town called Greenville, right?
Greenville, South Carolina is where.
Not Greenville, Georgia.
Not Greenville, Georgia. Greenville, South Carolina. By the way, if you're interested, the opponent will be LSU or Florida, and Texas Ole Miss is tonight at 5. If they win it, LSU Florida follows that. All SEC Network. Semifinal is tomorrow at 6, Saturday at 6 on ESPN2 if they make it. And if they go all the way to the final, if it's Texas and South Carolina or whoever, that's Sunday at 2, big ESPN. Big weekend coming for the Texas women's basketball team.
And real quick, that semifinal matchup, on paper, losing the coin toss and being on the LSU side of the bracket felt like a loss, right? If you had your choice.
On its face, it's what you don't want on its face.
You wouldn't want to play on consecutive nights LSU and then either Texas or South Carolina on literally back-to-back days.
Right.
So the thought was you wanted to win the coin toss so that you could be the number 1 seed in the tournament, but LSU's best player is out for the SEC tournament. So it's just it's not big, scary LSU that is capable of being a Final Four team. Right. It's a little bit of a wounded version of LSU who, without that player, struggled a little bit down the stretch. So it's, Texas is where I think, all things being said, you'd rather be 2 than 1 right now in terms of the pathway to get to the championship. It'll be interesting to see what both Texas and South, because you would think 3 consecutive games, 3 consecutive days of basketball, it might actually turn into who has the best legs on Sunday at 2:00. Like, that matters. It'll matter. And it's not this. This is such a weird. This is what makes conference tournaments just so weird, and it's why we probably don't see them impact the women's postseason in the NCAA tournament the way we see it do with the men, because they get that next week off. So they'll get, the bracket for the women won't come out for another week after this weekend, so they'll be able to rest up. It's a hell of a thing to ask men or women to play 3. They don't do it in the NBA. Like, in the NBA, they've even stopped doing back-to-backs. It's like, how many backs-to-back? I think even in the CBA, there's a limitation to how many back-to-backs a team has on its schedule. And in college basketball, one time in a year, they make you go the winner of those conference tournaments at least 3 games in 3 days. And we see every year moments where it's 4. And there is a world out there in the SEC where technically a team could win 5 games in a row on 5 consecutive days, right? Because there's like 2 levels of play-in before you get to the quarterfinals.
Correct.
Now, in all likelihood, those teams wouldn't win those games, but the task for the 16 seed, would essentially play all week every day.
Yeah, no, it's a crazy schedule. And to catch his point on LSU, Flau'jae Johnson is out for the rest of this tournament. I guess they think they might get her back for the big dance, but she won't be playing in this tournament. Texas, Ole Miss, 5:00 this afternoon, and Texas is going for their 14th win in a row since they lost to South Carolina.
Hercules.
Crazy. Speaking of basketball, Catch, buy or sell number 3. You're getting kind of pumped for the NBA playoffs.
Sell.
Okay.
Not kind of, and that you didn't set the bar high.
No, I did not. That's why I threw the kinda in there.
Chad, I don't think I've watched an NBA game since Christmas.
Okay.
You know who my team is, right?
I know who your team is, and I know that just like me, your team is going through some sadness right now, so I can understand why you wouldn't be focused.
God, if we had a Mavericks Sixers sad face-off.
Dude, I need a bucket.
I think the Mavericks win the sad face-off, but like we are noble contenders.
But
we're not the Mavericks, to be fair.
There ain't no reason to watch.
But you could make a case that maybe they needed to trade Joel Embiid already, whereas Dallas didn't need to trade Luka. So
right. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Just wanted to gauge. All right,
in the end, you guys may have Kyrie Irving with a bum ACL, but we have Paul George on a bum contract.
Damn right. That's bum for
He's
bum.
got a torn ACL of a contract.
His whole career's been a torn something. All right, Catch. Buy or sell number 4. I'm going to go see Rod Stewart in concert tonight. You have a favorite song that you'd like to hear?
Wow. I have seen Rod Stewart in concert. I saw him, I think it was 1988 at the Irwin Center.
Ooh, 88 solid. Yeah. Do you
it was 89. It was when he did the video Forever Young. I think that was 1989.
Forever Young's solid.
So it was the four. He did a. I mean, I probably would say "If You Think I'm Sexy" is my favorite Rod Stewart song.
Do You Think I'm Sexy? That's a good one. Yeah.
Is that the actual name of the song?
I think it's called "Do You Think I'm Sexy."
Do You Think I'm Sexy? That's right.
Yeah.
And then like "I'm Sexy" was right. Said Fred. Okay. But he did. He did and they were Nazis, which means they'd be more popular today.
I think that was "I'm Too Sexy," but anyway, sorry.
I thought the song is the song's "Too Sexy," not "I'm Sexy."
He sings "I'm Too Sexy." It's a bunch of "Too Sexy."
Yeah, but "I'm's" a big word. Look, I don't care.
That's okay. I'm looking this one up. Go ahead.
The night of the concert, Rod Stewart did an autograph signing at the Waterloo Ice House.
Oh, really?
No. At Waterloo Records, next to the Waterloo Ice House.
Yeah.
So I saw Rod Stewart in person signing autographs.
That's very cool. By the way,
that was a long way of me telling my Rod Stewart story, which isn't much of a story, but I have been in the same room as Rod Stewart. I didn't get his autograph because my mom was like working the event in the radio sales. But I was there. I saw Rod Stewart in person signing autographs.
Very nice. By the way, I double checked. I was right. "I'm Too Sexy" is the title of that song from Right Said Fred. Don't ever challenge me on song titles with the word "sexy" in them. Apparently, I'm really good at that. I didn't know.
Also, by the way, my wife was not ready for the Hank Williams yesterday or 2 days ago.
Really? She wasn't ready for that whining?
She goes, "Did I hear you yodeling?"
Yeah.
I said, "That was Hank, baby."
He went on.
You know what? I promise you, get your dad on the phone. And I bet if he heard me, you know, like that old Name That Tune song.
Mm-hmm.
If all he heard was, "Well, I'm low," and I stopped.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, your dad will know that is Hank Williams Sr. Trust me.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Trust me. My granddad and grandmother, they raised him on some Hank Sr. He knew his Hank Sr. Can't guarantee that he loved it all.
All you need is like 3 notes. And you're like, "Oh, Hank."
Yeah. Yep. You know it.
Even the bad Hank Williams Seniors, which is what I did.
Yeah.
By the way.
Delivery.
FedEx this time.
FedEx. All right, Catch. Let's round it out. Speaking of Rod Stewart, prime on prime, Rod's ex, Rachel Hunter, hotter than Kathy Ireland.
I'm going to sell. We're literally talking about SI swimsuit supermodel cover girls.
Right. It really is a matter of preference here.
It is 10 versus 10. Yeah. You're asking me to rank 5 stars, maybe even 2 6 stars, but I will say for me that Kathy Ireland, those eyes, that she gets the advantage because of the eyes.
Yeah, Kathy's something. The fans of Stacy's mom in the video would probably go with Rachel, but I can get either argument, and it will be fun to see Rod tonight. All right, that's mine, Catch. What do you got?
Buy or sell number 1, Texas and South Carolina will happen this weekend in Greenville, and the Longhorns will lose.
You know me, I like to play the math, and unlike your example earlier, I actually was pretty decent at math back in the day. I'm just going to sell and just take all of the field kind of math. Because part of selling here would be the Longhorns winning, and I kind of have a weird feeling like if they matched up again, I believe in the rematch sort of fight theory of things, and I think Texas might get them. So I'm just going to sell. I'm going to sell for multiple reasons, but one of them is I kind of would pick Texas to win that game.
Buy or sell number 2, you believe that Kelvin Banks is falling in the draft?
Man, my gut wants to sell this one. It's a very important position. I think the people that we've been talking today about, people that do certain jobs in certain ways, it's their job to crush film. It's their job to know all this stuff. It's their job to know the measurables, and it is their job not to fall for a 40. That can't be the only thing you care about. I'm going to say Kelvin Banks gets his due and gets drafted where he's supposed to.
Buy or sell number 3, Steve Sarkeesian will eventually have to delegate his many jobs a little more at some point.
It's got to be a buy. Whatever that means. Whatever it means. Does it mean bringing in more people? I don't know. Could be the delegation to people that are already there. But yeah, as time goes by, it's just going to have to. And I'll tell you, the period he's going into, Catch, I think this period of time, 1 year, maybe very well could be 2 years with Arch. Like, he knows what it is to be the coach at Texas and all the media craziness. He does not know what this one is, though. He's about to go through 2 years possibly of, oh my God, when Arch is your quarterback and everything it adds into it, I think it might jar him into realizing, oh, wow, I do need to delegate a little bit, figure it out, and, do a little bit better managing the schedule.
Buy or sell number 4. There's a movie out right now in the theater that you haven't seen but want to.
I think it's a sell, because the only 2 movies I can think, one for sure, I want to see this Rami Malek movie when it comes out, where he's like an like a under the radar badass. There's something coming later in the year. I think it's a sell right now. I can't think of anything right. The one movie I really wanted to see from the Oscar group was A Complete Unknown, because I'm a music fan and a Dylan fan, and I saw it. And I can't think of anything right now that's there that I absolutely want to see.
I was going to agree with you, and then I just looked at my favorite movie theater, and they re-released A Complete Unknown, which kind of pisses me off, because I kept looking at my favorite movie theater in this area for weeks, and it was just gone. And now that the Oscars are over, they've put it back in, and I've seen it, but I kind of want to go see A Complete Unknown. I'm not. I've seen it. I won't. I don't know that I have time, but I would like to go see A Complete Unknown in the theater. And the only other one that I was kind of like, well, I haven't seen Captain America: Brave New World.
Yeah, see, we did go and see that. Here's one for me. If the Jesse Eisenberg Culkin movie's still out there, I have one. I've wanted to see it, but I'm assuming it's out of theaters now.
Oh yeah.
Okay. That's a movie I feel bad I didn't see it because I think I would really enjoy it. I'm going to have to catch that when it comes to a movie channel.
All right. And finally, I wanted to go with a hotter than, and I was trying to figure out, I wanted to keep it Mikey Madison.
Okay.
She's the reigning Oscar champ now.
Right, from Honora.
And I went with Mikey Madison versus Emma Stone last time.
Yes, you did.
I wonder if this one's the better question.
Okay.
Buy or sell number 5. It's an Oscars hotter than Best Actress variety.
All right.
Mikey Madison hotter than Selena Gomez.
Ooh. I've been watching some Selena lately because we're starting to watch this Murders in the Building show.
And it's not Prime on Prime, whatever we think that might be. It is right here and right now.
Right now, it's a buy.
Okay.
Right now, that's a buy. It's Mikey Madison. Yeah, there's just and it could be the new freshness of her. We talked about that fresh face syndrome that can happen where you're kind of noticing her a little more. But that big beautiful smile, and I've also
what about Prime on Prime?
I've also seen a couple interviews. Prime on Prime, I might sell and go with Selena.
Bingo. You nailed it, Chad. Like, I think that's the answer, which is why I thought it was a good buy or sell.
But right now, it's Mikey Madison. I will say, though, I'm enjoying Only Murders in the Building and Selena Gomez, the acting chops. I haven't seen her do a lot of that, but she's really good. She's really good. Very expressive face. And I've enjoyed that show. It's a weird idea, but we're into season 2 of it now. So it's pretty good. All right, Catch, real quick before we exit, Chris Bennett threw this in. Just give me a quick answer here. Whatever happened to Micah Hudson? Is he going back to Tech for sure?
I don't think anything's official.
It's such a
weird.
I
think he's in Lubbock this semester.
Okay. Yeah, such a weird story, man. Thank you, Chris Bennett, as always, for checking us out and throwing stuff in. One other thing before we exit, let's remind you that Hijack Poker is out there. You saw some Hijack Poker on the show this week. Go check it out for yourself. Hijackpoker.com, anywhere in Texas. Got to be inside the state of Texas. Go play some online poker. You can deposit, cash out at one of those 6 locations. As Ketch has told you, there's a lot of ways you can get money, money put in there and everything. And you can put the app on any device you want and get on in there. See what it's all about. You might end up, who knows, playing against Jeff Ketchum in Hijack Poker.
Yeah, I'm up today.
Yeah?
Not playing right now.
Okay. You weren't playing during the show today.
I didn't say that. I said I'm not playing right now.
Fair enough.
I mean, to be fair, it's like a 2-hour show today. So I don't think I've been playing for at least the last hour.
No, man, you got on a roll talking about about Steve Sarkeesian and the staff and Brandon Harris, and we rolled out to almost 2 hours. I don't
play online poker as well at the same time as doing the show as I used to.
Okay.
In my prime, say 2008. Oh, I was the man. Actually, I may have lost more than I won, so maybe not. But like, I have enough self-awareness now to realize I'm not quite, even with a bigger screen and more things opened up. It's the lesson from today. How many jobs do I need to be doing at the same time? Isn't there just one that I need to be a 10 at? And if I'm doing it at a 7 and I'm doing the other thing at a 7, I need to do the most important thing at a 10, if at all possible. And if that means I have to give up the thing that I'm doing at a 7,
yep.
I need to.
And remember, that most important job is always carrying me. That is the most important job.
That was your job, was carrying me.
Before we get out of here, ATX Bates, $4.99. Chad, for a football Aggie natty, you'd rather get punched in the junk by Francis Ngannou or take 3 kicks by Lucy Liu in the junk? I got to go Lucy Liu there.
Yeah. What are we
I'm going Lucy Liu. Plus, I get to tell the story about how Lucy Liu kicked me in the junk 3 times. Right?
I don't know that I want to tell the story about Francis Ngannou punching me in the junk.
Plus, It Bates you, no, got to go Lucy Liu.
You're legit coughing up blood if Francis Ngannou punches you in the junk. You're just in like some serious pain if Lucy Liu kicks you. Because like the thing is, there's nothing in that buy or sell that says you can't protect yourself or at least try to cover. You know what I mean?
Well, and also Lucy Liu is not professionally trained to kick people there. Francis Ngannou is professionally trained to punch people. Not there, but he is professionally trained to punch people. So
Chad, would you rather have Lucy Liu kick you 3 times in the nuts or have Ivan Drago punch you hard 1 time in the nuts?
Lucy Liu. Lucy Liu is the answer to this.
Because you saw Drago in Rocky IV hit those things and it was like 3,000 pounds of pressure. And you're like, oh, no, fuck that.
Yeah, all that technology. I don't want any of that. Thank you for one of the weirder ideas I've ever heard of, ATX Bates. You always keep it weird. That's why we love you. And we love all of you guys, over 800 of you in the Specs chat. Thank you for liking, subscribing, getting your notifications. If you didn't like on the way in, make sure you like on the way out. We're almost to 14 million views total on Orange Bloods Live. We appreciate you for supporting us. We got Football with Friends coming up. Give them some views at 6 o'clock. Monday, Overreaction Show with Catch and Anwar. That's at 9 a.m. on Monday. And obviously check out orangebloods.com. Right there, your lower left corner. You click on that. It's the easiest way to get into orangebloods.com.
The War Room is free this week.
Catch made the War Room free, kids. Santa Catch made the War Room free. Get in there, read it, and then realize, wait a minute, I could have 51 more of those? Yes. Orangebloods.com. Get signed up, and you'll be helping us out. You'll be helping us out. You'll be helping Catch out. He will smile a lot more. He can get more deliveries to the house that the dogs will bark at. His wife can get more robes, and I won't have to get a real job. That's the goal. Have a great weekend. We will be back on Monday at noon. Y'all take